Hi, welcome to my channel, and in this video we're going to talk about Substance Painter. We're going to go through a lot of stuff, so I'm going to try to make a bunch of chapters at the bottom. When you first open Substance Painter, one of the first things you're going to see is this little text box, and you're going to be probably pretty confused about all the stuff you see. I know I was when I first saw it. You can just get rid of this box, or if you never want to see it again, you can just kind of hit this button over here. I've just gotten into the habit of just closing it every time it's there. I've had it for years. I'm shocked I haven't gotten rid of it yet. So we have right here the offset library. We have some properties, layers, texture sets. We'll get through all these in a second, but you're probably wondering how you start a project in Substance Painter. So the first thing we do is we come up here, we go to File, and we go New, and we're going to get this new text box. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in here. So there's templates. What templates are is there's a bunch of different kind of shaders you can work with that for different projects and different project needs, different project types. You can even make your own shaders. We're not going to go into that here in this video, but there's a lot of different things you can do. Like there's a bunch of different PBR. There's certain ones for Unreal, certain ones for Unity. I find these are very I don't really use them. I typically stick with like the typical alpha blend, alpha test stuff, or sometimes I have made my own to try to work with them. But for right now, we're just going to stick with the base one. There's also, we want to keep our normal maps at DirectX because we're not working with OpenGL. Everything else is going to stay the same. We're not going to mess with anything else. The only two things we are going to mess with are our document resolution. This is what our textures are where we're going to be working with texture wise. So for this one, we're going to move it up to 4K because we're not really worried about optimization. We're not worried about anything like that. Typically, you want to, if when you're authoring textures, you want to author them at a higher resolution than what you're going to need. So you have, it's easier to downscale than it is to upscale, if that makes sense. So we're gonna, whatever the highest resolution is, we're gonna work with that, and then we can always downscale from there. So we're gonna find an asset to work with. What I'm going to choose to do is I'm going to use this tunnel ring from my sci-fi environment that if you follow the channel you saw a little bit ago. I'll put it in a card or something on the screen over here, or I'll show a picture of it. So we're going to click the ring. We're going to open it. We're just going to hit OK, and it's going to load into the scene. So this is one of the best things about Substance Painter is you have an actual model that you can deal with. You're not dealing with like a 2D editor. You're not dealing with anything. You actually have like your physical 3D models that you're working with. And you have all these different things down here you can work with. These are all the standard assets that come in Substance Painter. You have different things. You have all different kinds of metals. You have like aluminum. You have mortar down here. You have some nails. Different types of iron. A bunch of different types of iron actually. Some titanium, silver, some steels. Some of these I don't like working with. I've had Substance Painter for. I've been using Substance Painter for probably like 6-7 years. There's some of these I have never used, like this plastic fabric. I have never used it in 7 years. This one right here too. Any of these I've really never used. And we're not going to use them for this video. So, um, basically, how this part works now is Substance Painter is a layer editor. If you've ever used Photoshop, it's it's very much the same, but it's just the added complexity of you now have a 3D model and you have your 2D UVs right here. Oh, and if you don't see these, right? So if you load it up and you just have this, you don't have this, or you just have this and you don't have this, you can change that up here. There's a little button. It's usually third from the left and fifth from the right. I'm on 2D, 3D, and you can also use F1, F2, F3, and F4. You can do it 3D only if you just want to deal with this. I like to work with 3D and 2D because I want to see what's going on my textures. And I also want to see what the physical model is doing. There's some other things interface-wise. So this is your layer stack right here. These are all your properties of your layers. So if I would say, there's different controls here. If I want to say make a fill layer really quick, I can see that it's changing whichever layer I'm working with. It's again very indicative of like Photoshop, where your properties are typically your layer editors down here, your properties are up here. Every object has a texture set So if you have, so this object is only one texture at the moment, it's only one material. You can assign different materials in your 3D editor. So say in Maya, I assigned one material, or I assigned 4 or 5. I will see all of those up here in different sets. So right now I only have one. I just use the default shader in Maya because I'm going to rename it when I take it into an engine. But for right now, I just have one, and I just have this object. So what we can do from here is we can just take a material, we can just slap it on, see what it does, and you can see it does a lot. It just applies the material across the entire object, and that's great. That's one of the things we wanted. Now, and if we say that's just a steel, if I wanted an iron, I could just throw it over there. Or if I wanted something colorful, let's say this one here. You can see everything that I'm adding in the order that I'm adding it over here. So I have this fill layer that's right here. I added this steel, I added this iron, and now I have this glossy plastic. And you can see that it's inheriting the values from the lower levels on the top levels. So if I have this plastic here and I have this iron, if I turn this iron back on, you can see this warbly effect, and the lighting slightly changes on the object because this is just a flat value of roughness and metallic. There's no height value, there's no normal, there's no anything else. But if I go into my iron, it has all of these different attributes. And there's also some of these have like a lot more details than other things. So we're not going to worry about any of those for right now. This has a height map, it has a normal map, has a different roughness value, has a different metal value. If I turn it back on, then you can see kind of one of the other things that it's doing. If I turn the steel on, you can see that it kind of multiplies it as well. It doesn't multiply it, but because there's blend modes, but it adds on top of it. It's everything that's underneath this is being affected by this. And we're going to go into later how we can compound that idea and make it a lot more interesting and make some really interesting textures. So one of the things that we're going to do for right now is we're just going to kind of get rid of all of our things at the moment. We're going to get rid of those. One of the first things you want to do when you load your model is right now there's no information, right? All of your textures, all of your stuff are going to work off of a process that's called baking. And right now this object is not baked. So what do I mean by that is if I take this steel and I apply that, and then I have this mortar wall, I apply that there. We're gonna get. I'm just gonna speed through this process for a second, but we're gonna go through a little more a little later. If I just add some generators, Substance Painter is very powerful where you can apply the data of the object and the texture coordinates to your textures so that you can have things like it will realize where the seams and things are, and you can make like dripping rust and stuff. But to do that, you can see like this dirt is not recognizing any of that. So let's make that happen. So we're going to delete that. We're actually going to delete anything that's applied to it for the moment because you can cause a lot of errors. You can actually crash Substance Painter by doing this. Up here in the top right, there's File, Edit, Mode, Window, Viewport, JavaScript, Python, and Help. We're going to go to Mode. There's also different hotkeys. You can go F8, F9, F10. We're going to go into Bake Mesh Maps with the cute little croissant. We're going to click on that. And this is your baking screen. This is a very important screen you're going to get very familiar with. If you have any errors, usually you're going to see it here. What we're going to do is this output size, we're going to keep it low for the moment, and I'll explain why. You have your dilution width, max frontal distance, max rear distance. Right now, these are not important to us, but in later videos when we talk about high to low baking or like using high density mesh to project our details onto lower density meshes, we're going to be dealing with everything else that's here. But for right now, we're not going to because it's not important for this mesh. All of your settings, your different output textures are going to be over here. So these are the common settings. If I wanted to go into my normals, there's no parameters I can check here. There's different things for different ones that I can mess around with. But typically I don't touch those. There's no reason to. Normally the bakes come out pretty well. Um, but one of the things I want to get people in the practice of, if you've never used Substance Painter before, is leaving this at 512 for the moment. You want to hit this button that says Bake Selected Textures, and you're going to see it do a lot of cool, funky stuff for a little bit. And the reason why is there's a bug in Substance Painter that if you load it at 512 first and then go even to the highest resolution and you load it again, it'll be about 3 times as fast. Why? I don't know. It's a thing that's existed since the newest update. I think it's version 8. It's just a thing. I don't know what's going on with it. So I just try to tell people get in the practice of doing that. Now, what just happened, to explain it a little further, is it's taking a position of, oh, I thought this would move, is it's creating a cage around the mesh and it's projecting real world coordinates, like computer coordinates, more or less, and trying to figure out where everything is in like a 3D space so it can project that information onto your 2D texture and you can get 3D information on the 2D space. It's complicated as all heck, but it works. So we're going to just crank that really high. Having it really low is going to affect some of the things we're going to do later. So typically you don't want to do 8,000. I'm just proving a point here where if you do 500 first and then you do 800 again, it runs pretty quickly. Typically 8,000 takes a while, but if you do 500 first, then it doesn't take as long. So we're just going to go to where it ends. All right, so it ended. We're going to go back. You can kind of see a difference already in what happened. So it's going to apply a little bit of, I don't remember if it's screen space or if it's world space AO, but it's applying a little bit of ambient occlusion. You can see a little bit of darkness around things now because it actually knows that there is information there, that there's geometry that is going to react to light. So what we can do now, we can apply our steel to the object, and then we can take a mortar wall and also apply that to an object. Now, here's where Substance Painter gets really, really powerful. It's one of the best parts about Substance Painter. It's called masking. Masking is wonderful. If you have any extended time in Photoshop, you probably use masks extensively. It is the same principle, but in 3D, and it's fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here. This is our we're going to avoid this for the moment. We're going to go over here to this little mask icon. We're going to click that. And we see white mask, black mask, bitmap, mask with color selection, and add mask with height combination. We're going to go to add black mask. And you can see our thing disappeared. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do one of the most powerful things in Substance Painter. We're going to add generators. So in this wand tool, we're going to click it. And these are some of the funnest things in this software. So there is add paint, fill, levels. We're going to hit add generator. Nothing happens because we have to go down here where in our properties tab and says generator, no generator selected. So we're going to click on that and we're going to find something we want. So let's say we wanted this to be like a dusty spaceship, right? Let's hit our dust icon. And you can see, unlike what we did earlier, it's actually taking into account the space around it, and it's saying, okay, where would dust settle? It's very rudimentary, but it gets you a very, very good starting point about like how dust would settle on an object like this. And then you got a lot of parameters in here you can toy around with. You can say, I don't want a lot of dust, or I just want, if you look in here, like right in this area, I just want it in that little crevice there. I just want it right there. And I just want the tiniest bit of dust buildup. And it starts adding life, and you can start compounding things on top of each other. But also, masks aren't just used for that. If you wanted to mask out certain objects, you can do that. If I go back up here again, I want my plastic, want my glossy plastic. I can apply that here. Let's say I want a nice white color or a nice gray color. Let's put it like nice neutral gray. How I did that is I just clicked right here. You get this nice color wheel. You can move it around. You get your hue, saturation, and your values, or you can create swatches down here that stay permanently down there. I made these probably 3 years ago. So we're going to make it a nice neutral gray. Click that. And what I want to do is I want to go up here. I want to hit a mask again. Let's go black mask. And then over here, we have your paintbrush, you have your eraser. The hell was that? Oh, you have your projection, and then you have this, which allows you to select in different modes. So you have your triangle mode, you have your polygon, and you have your mesh fill. Because this is different meshes, I'm going to make my life a little easier. I'm going to hit mesh fill, and I can just select the meshes that I want. Say I over-select that, I can either hit Control Z, or if I double select it again, over here on the properties of my mask, I have a color, white being selection because it's a black mask. If I go back, if I hit this button here, or if I just move the slider, I can paint again, and it'll get rid of anything that I don't want to have that glossy plastic color. So if I go back, I can just start grabbing stuff. I want to have that glossy plastic. And when I want to get out of this tool, I just go over here, I select that, and I immediately have some nice variation on this. And I can repeat the process again. So let's go down here to our steel, or I have steel selected on everything. So if I wanted to select this and I hit Control D to duplicate, I can then right click on the mask and I can hit clear mask. I can go over here, I can change my color to something like, let's go down here, let's find a nice brownish color. That's a little orange, but that'll work for what we're doing. I can go here again and click that. So I have a mask active, it's just not applied to anything. So by default, when you go into a mask, you're gonna have a brush that you can brush whatever you want. But we're gonna repeat that process again. We're gonna go over here. We're gonna click this. We're gonna make sure we're on our polygon fill, which is up here in the top left. And we're just gonna highlight it. And you can see it just covers every bit of that paint that I just did. Then I can go over here again and I can cover that. And voila, I now have, let's grab that too, just for funsies. Now I have all of those different components. And then it also works in reverse. So if I grab this and I go back to my mask, my paintbrush is active. You can see it's not doing anything here, but if I go down at the very bottom of the properties, I have my grayscale again. I can bring that all the way down and I can erase paint off of the steel. Kind of neat, huh? So now I have this nice doorway, and we learned some basic masks and generators. Let's up it a little bit. Say I want to start adding life and character to this environment. One of the things that I can do is I have a lot of paint layers kind of all around. I have a basic steel, but I want all of my paint layers to have a little bit of wear to them. So what I can do is I can start adding groups. I can start having a lot of fun with this. So I can go, okay, I have my steel. All of these are my different paint layers. I can grab these, I can highlight them all and hit Control G and it'll create a new group. Again, if you've ever used Photoshop, one of the most powerful aspects of this is I can rename this to paint, and then I can apply a white mask instead of a black mask to the entire folder. I can close that. And what I can do with this is apply a generator to the entire folder. And I can start adding different elements to it. So if I go down here and I apply another generator, which I just did, and I applied a metal edgeware, I can reverse it. Right here, it says invert. I can hit it was set to false, I can hit true to reverse it. And now on wear level, I can dial in how much paint I want to come off of that. Now say it's a little flat at the moment. What I can do over here is I can click on, this is my mask, this is my base color. What I can do is I can click on the base color. I can come up here again to this wand. I can hit levels. Now what levels allows me to do is it allows me to control, again, if you've ever used Photoshop, it allows me to control individual components of different things. But I can control every component of it. So one of the things I can do here is I can add a height component to my levels, which there doesn't seem to be any height here, but I can just add that there for now. I can go into my folder, and each of these I can add a height component to all of them, which is off by default, so I can just add it on. I don't want it on the dirt, so let's just make sure it's on the paint. And then I can go in here. I can either move this around, or I can dial in a number. I'm going to put in, say, 0.01. No. Say 0.05. 0.05. And you can see it's starting to add just a little bit of offset from where it was, but it's a little extreme at the moment, so we're gonna dial this back just a little bit. Dial it back. I just want a little bit of breakup there. I don't want to go crazy. I just want edge breakup. Again, I don't want it to be like an abandoned ship, but I want, something that's not totally cared for, if that makes sense. I just want to break up that pristine paint that's on the edge there. All right, so that's folders. Now, let's get into paint layers. So we've been using fill layers this entire time. All of these are fill layers. Even if you grab one of these and throw it up, that's a fill layer. One of the fun things you can do is you can add a paint layer. All the elements of what you've been doing with a fill layer are also available to you with a paint layer. So one of the things we're going to do right now is we're going to go over here and say this looks a little barren up here, right? I can add color, or I can go in here. Right now, color is the only one selected. I can add a height value, and I can say, oh, it added a little bit of height. Oh, if you want to move your cursor around or change it, hold down Control, and then all of your mouse buttons, so left, right, and scroll moves it this way. Holding left rotates the object, or rotates the projection, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then holding right changes the size if you go left and right, and up and down changes the fall off. So if I go like this, you can see that it's just a straight square now with a little bit of, or circle with a little bit of height. But if I change the fall off, then you can see it's a rounded edge now. But say we want to add a little variation to this. This is very flat at the moment. We want to add some sort of like normal variation. One of the things we can do is we can go over here into our different subsections of the asset browser. And we have right now, we have our materials, we have our smart materials, which I'll show you what those are very briefly. I don't use them a whole lot, but if I turn off all my layers, and I go over here, say to this machinery smart material, and I apply that, all of these materials are preset materials made by Substance that already use your object's baked textures to try to create something unique. So if I get rid of that, or I can go into I can make it marble. It looks like it's just a nice marble sheet. There's some nice wood ones. If I wanted a wooden spaceship for whatever reason, then you can toy around here. Or there's some nice steel ones that you can apply that do similar things to what we've just been doing, but now you know how to do them instead of using smart materials. So say we want to add that variation. So we have our regular materials, we have our smart materials, we have our different masks down here. We have some different filters. We have different brushes that we can work with. We have different alphas we can work with, but over here in our tileables are these little things. They're like normal projections that we can use. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get rid of our color just by clicking it. You see it's no longer here. You see our height is no longer here if I get rid of that. All we want to really work with right now is our normal and our height. I know we just said we're getting rid of it, but actually, and I want to reduce my height. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to find just one of these that's toward the top of this section over here. It's just this beveled rectangle. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to pull it into my normal. And same thing, I'm going to pull it into my height. And then I'm going to go over here. And then I'm going to hover over. I'm going to make sure that my fall off is almost to the ring on the outside. Again, if I hold down right and I move it up and down on the mouse, you can see that it's moving it. I want it all the way to the outer ring, and then I want it, let's say, about that size. If I click it, you can see it added something, but I'm actually going to get rid of height. I didn't think it was going to be that aggressive. My bad. Let's get rid of our height. We don't need that at the moment. So if we click it, we can see it added a nice little rectangle here. But let's rotate it just a little bit to make sure it's kind of oriented into a reasonable direction. All right, so let's apply that right there. Again, to rotate, you can see it's rotating. If I'm holding Control and I'm holding left mouse up and down, I am rotating it. You can see there's a little spot toward the top that has a bunch of pixels that are condensed together. It's kind of hard to see. It's kind of hard to highlight while I might highlight it in post, but toward the very top of that circle that's got a bunch of pixels that are highlighted together, that's how you can keep track of the orientation of where it is or what your projection is. So now we have our little cubular thing there. Let's add another one here. We're just adding in what looks like panels to different sections of this little ring here. And then we can add different ones. So like we're not exclusive to that one. We can go here, we can add this one. I can add this little circle in. I'll add it there. Being cautious to like keep, see where my detail assets are or where I'm not overloading it with certain things. Let's add that thing there. Let's add a vent. Let's have a little fun and add a vent. Again, we need to orient this properly. And you can kind of compound how it's going to look by if you press it. If you keep it in the same spot, you can press it twice and make it a little more aggressive. Now you're probably thinking that's cool and all, but I wish they had depth. I wish they had something that felt like it was a part of the entire scene. Well, that's the other magic of Substance Painter, is we're going to add what's called anchor points to our scene. So what we're going to do is we have our layer here. We're going to rename this really quick to normals paint, or whatever it is that you can signify what you just did. I know this is just the normals things we just painted here, so normals paint. And what we're going to do is we're going to go up here into this little tab here. We're going to click it, and we're going to go add anchor point. So we're going to put that right there. We're not going to worry about that for the moment, but we're going to go over here back to our main section. And what we can do is we can add a fill layer, and we can get rid of everything we don't need. So we have all of our things highlighted at the moment. If we only want color, for example, we can hold Alt and hit color, which is all we need. I'm going to make this let's say, if this is the color, if this is around about the color of what the middle sections are, I'm going to make this fairly dark. I don't want it pure black, but I'm going to make it fairly dark. And then I'm going to add a black mask. So what we can do from here is, as we always did, we can just go up here, we can add a generator, but this time we're going to add ambient occlusion. And it's going to make everything dark. What we can do is just hit false. It's still going to keep everything a little dark. If I go over here to our global balance and I start pulling it down, you can see it's coming back in to the different sections here. I make it really extreme. You can see it's coming in from these different sections over here. Ambient occlusion is a very weird shader, or a very weird generator. However, we're missing something here. Like I said, you wanted these to have more detail. Well, here we go. Right in here, in the ambient occlusion properties, there's a section called Use Micro Details. We're going to hit True on that, and we're going to get new image inputs down here, micro normal and micro height. So we're going to click our micro normal, and we're going to go to anchor points. And we're going to see every anchor point we've created so far, which is just normal's pane. We're going to click on that. And how anchor points work is they reference the channels from where they came from. So here, there's only one channel that is working. So it's our micro normal. So if we go back to ambient occlusion, we have micro normal and micro height. We're going to set this as well to micro height, and we're going to go into our base color, and we're going to change our reference channel, and we're going to change this to normal. And you can see right away, it already added some of the elements in. Now, even though we don't have a height channel, we're going to change this anyway to height, just for brevity's sake, in case we ever added a height. If we ever wanted to come back here in our normals and add a height anyway, we want to change that. So if we go into our ambient occlusion again, and we start pulling this down, you can see immediately the difference is all of these different sections now are taking in that element. And then we can even keep using it, so that if we go again, we raise it back up. We just want a little bit of darkness in all of our areas. Say we duplicate this. Instead of, say, let's add our dirt again, with just a mortar wall. We're going to lower this into a more acceptable region. Black mask, just repeat the process. Let's add a dirt this time. Micro details, and we're going to add our both micro height and micro normal all the way down at the bottom. Might change it to the referenced channels. Reference channel, we're going to change those to normal. Height. And then from here, we just dial in how much dirt we want. Now, here's another cool thing you can do. Say you don't want all of this dirt. Say you don't want all this dirt here, but you want it all right here. What you can do is you can crank it up to where you want it here, which, let's say this is exactly how much dirt I want. I want it to look nice and grungy, but I don't want all of this. What I can do here is I can make sure that my mask is selected. I can go up here and I can hit a paint layer. And then I can go over here, and it's by default already a black mask. So I can change it and I can get rid of it. Just the same way we did at the very beginning. I can get rid of it from here, go back, and it's automatically not applied to this intersection. It's only going to be applied to the things I want it to be applied to. And so those are kind of the basic principles of everything of Substance Painter that you can just kind of compound on. And one of the things also that I didn't touch on is your texture set settings. There's some other things over here. When we do a more advanced video, we'll go into all these things. We'll go into creating your own custom shaders. We'll go into creating different texture sets and like how to deal with them. But for right now, I just wanted this to be a basic like introduction into all this. But say you're happy with what you're working on now and you want to export it. Well, that's actually incredibly simple in Substance Painter. You go back up to the top and you hit File, and instead of saving or saving as, you go down here to Export Textures. You don't want to export your mesh. Sometimes different 3D softwares like to triangulate things in different ways. I'll give you a great example. If I go to this mode, in Maya did not look like this. Substance Painter did some fun nonsense when it was imported, so it added some more triangles where it didn't really need them to be. But oh well, I mean I'm not exporting this mesh. I'm just exporting textures. So I go back into File. I go down to Export Textures. Now, Substance Painter is always going to have a default location that it sends them to. Be wary of this. You can change it. Um, I'm not exactly sure. Again, it's just a muscle memory thing now that I always change it no matter where it goes. But what you want to do is in your output directory, wherever you want to put it, make sure you change this. Put it somewhere you know you're going to find it, because this PC documents Adobe 3D Painter export. You're never going to find you're never going to find it if you throw it there. I have lost so many files. I don't even want to know how many files I have in this folder. So just find a location for it and throw them there. Yeah, so once you have a folder, it wants a folder. It's not going to want like a location. You need to have an actual folder. So I just created a new one, Substance Painter tutorial. Send that, and then you have different templates you can export it as. It's mine defaults to PBR metallic roughness, which is kind of the base of what PBR is. You can also go up here and change different things. I don't really use a lot of these. I've maybe used a couple different ones over time. Like I have, you see like variation mask. Like I created this one and I created new export preset, which I need to get better at naming things, but that's just me. Um, I've created different ones to use over time, but 99% of the time, I either use the basic PBR metallic roughness, or I go up here and say document channels plus normal plus AO with alpha, which I'm going to click on that one for right now. And then, yeah, when you hit export, you're going to see this. It's just saying that it's working on them. It's going to get a load bar, and then this is just saying that it's doing it, and it's going to give you an error if it messed it up, which is very rare if it does. Um, there's some other things too. You may run into issues where your textures are creating what's called dilution. Right now, it's not here. Dilution is where it kind of fakes color. It sends it out and it kind of stretches it between the different elements in your texture. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. If you don't want that, in padding, dilution infinite, you can change it so it's no a background color, or it has no dilution at all. It's just see-through. I've had times where I've had to change that. It just, depends on the model, depends on what you're working on. Once you do all that, you should get your different maps. So you should get your base color, your emissive, your height, metallic, mixed AO. You're going to get two normal maps, opacity and a roughness if you use the same template I used. Unreal Engine is going to want to use this DirectX one here. I mean, either one should theoretically be fine. They're going to be slightly different. You may get an OpenGL, depending on, again, on your format, you may get OpenGL or DirectX. In Unreal Engine, you're going to want to use DirectX. It's going to work a whole lot better. It's going to fix a lot of problems you're going to run into. I'm just going to tell you right now, use DirectX. So we'll get rid of that. And for right now, this is going to be it on this video. I'll be making another one that is more advanced and more detailed on creating more complex textures, creating your own smart materials. And yeah, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.